And hello. And hello. How are you? Welcome to the show, everybody. This is your host, Jim Masters. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Hope you guys are doing well. This is the Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series that we launched about 8 weeks ago. And we just thank you very much for all of the wonderful love and the support and all of the comments that we've been getting. Again, as you know, I do this professionally as a television and radio host and journalist and actor and voiceover artist and writer, producer, stage MC. Love every bit of it. Love what you do what you love. And then so many people wanted me to create this show, and we did 8 weeks ago. And I have to personally thank everybody from all around the United States and Canada, Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. We have an audience that really covers all 4 points of the globe. And it's been extraordinary, the response that we've been having. So many people want to hop on the show, friends of mine in the industries, but also so many people are telling each other about the show because, again, there's a lot of negativity out there these days. There's a lot of hatred out there. There's a lot of animosity. So we are pretty much the antithesis of that. The show, as we mention every single night when we come on live, the show is all about light, levity, and love. Or when we had that Freudian slip the other night and we combined levity and love, we created Lovity. So we're in our circle of Lovity here where everything is positive and inspiring. We get into some really deep conversations and inspirational conversations. We have folks who are guests from the worlds of television and music and film and theater, as well as chefs and sports and science and inspiration every single night. We're here live. If you're just joining us for the very first time, I'm your host, Jim Masters. We're here every single night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And we simulcast worldwide on YouTube at Jim Masters TV and also on Facebook at Jim Masters TV. And I tell you, the amount of comments that we've been getting on YouTube and on Facebook have been extraordinary, and private texts and Facebook messages from all around the world, how so many people feel like they're being inspired and lifted by our talk show series here, not just with the guests and the interviews, but just from the feeling and the vibes that we're putting out. And that's what I enjoy doing all the time. I like to do that in my professional work, and I love to do it here for you. So if you're just joining us for the first time, we thank you very much for joining us. We have an extraordinary guest who's joining us as well for an incredible interview, and not even an interview. As you know, I don't even say interview. I say more like a warm conversation, because I think conversations are much more relatable, much more authentic. And I think that people just feel them more when they're a conversation. You're sort of listening in or watching a conversation between two people, and in this case, people that are in, the creative world. And it's such something that really goes a little bit deeper than just that typical question answer interview. So good to have you with us. And those of you who are with us every single night, well, we do this. We toast you and you and you and you and you from all around the world. We say thank you very much for joining us. This is a wonderful pleasure to have you with us today here on the show. As you know as well, and again, when we did a nostalgic week a couple of weeks ago, we brought in some cast of characters here, and it seems to be putting a lot of smiles on people's faces. They have fallen in love with the cast of characters. So there you go. There is your friend, George Burns. George Burns says hello to you. He's got his cigar, he's got his glasses, and he's greeting every single one of you from all around the world. He sees you guys. He's greeting you and welcoming you. And of course, you have Jeannie in there as well. If you recall, Jeannie, Jeannie, she's in the bottle, but not now, because for Father's Day, she went off to Baghdad. Haji came to get her. She went to Baghdad for Father's Day. So Jeannie's not in the bottle. However, the bottle is here. Where George Burns is watching over the bottle for Jeannie. And all of your other cast of characters are here as well. And of course, you know, we go Hollywood here. So we go with a little lights, camera, and action to put a smile on your face. Again, it's all about light, levity, and love. So there you go. Lights, camera, action. We have officially begun the show. And again, it's a pleasure to have you here. Some of your other friends are here that you guys always ask about. There's Silver, who we got on that TV shoot in Switzerland, here to put a smile on your face as well. And again, one more. If I don't mention these cast of characters, people always say, where is this one and where is that one? So again, there's your friend Jimmy. He says hello as well. There you go. And if you got kids watching, I'm sure they love all of this. So how was your day? I hope you guys are doing well wherever you're watching around the world. Again, I'm your host, Jim Masters. We're here every single night. I actually signed up for every single night. Yeah, we're here every single night, 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. And again, it's our pleasure to do everything we can to put smiles on your faces and to welcome you into the world of the Jim Masters Show Live. We've had extraordinary guests. If you were with us last night, we had the incomparable actress Lane Bradbury with us last night, and we had an extraordinary conversation. She was very open and very authentic and very real, and I hope you got a sense for that. If you missed the episode with Lane Bradbury last night, all you have to do is to go in the archives, go to Jim Masters TV on YouTube, and you can see every episode of our entertainment lifestyle talk show series, all the great guests, all the great topics, the on location segments, and more. And also a couple nights ago, we had award-winning actress and writer and producer and voiceover artist Kathy Garver, who had a role in the 10 Commandments. And she was also Sissy on the CBS sitcom Family Affair with Brian and Keith and Sebastian Cabot and Johnny Whitaker and Issa Jones. And we had an extraordinary conversation with Kathy Garver as well, and just so many more people. I'm excited to tell you that at the end of the show, we have some amazing additional guests who are joining us. We are now just about booked all the way to the end of August. Well, it's only June, and we're already booked to the end of August with guests who want to come on the show. About 7 more guests just popped on today who will be coming in subsequent weeks. So that's extraordinary. It's amazing the response, and everybody's spreading the word, and everybody's having watch parties, and they're sharing the links. And I have to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I truly, truly appreciate that. That's what helps something grow. That's what helps something flourish. You know, it's like a flower. When you fertilize it and you take care of it and you nurture it, it grows and it expands and it provides beauty for everybody else. So you're sharing the links and you're telling each other about this series is extraordinary. And again, I do this work professionally, but when we built this set here at the home studio, because so many of us have been homebound pretty much, it was something I was wanting to do for the longest time, but I've always been so busy with TV shoots and radio shows and on location filming and everything, and always on a plane or, you know, in the Netherlands or California or wherever we are all the time. But we had the time to build this, and it's been great. So we say thank you very much for joining us here on the show. And we're just going to take a quick moment to welcome some of our fantastic viewers who are here on the show. We're welcoming lots of new people every single day. We have Karen Levitt in New Hampshire. Hi, Jim and everyone. Happy well, actually, it's Tuesday. Happy Monday. You're still, I know with everything that's going on, it is hard to keep track of the days of the week because every day's been blurred. The whole year, 2020, is just the year of whatever, I guess. But happy Monday and happy Tuesday. And Christopher Joseph in Ohio says, hi, Jim. That's great to see you. Eileen Barker, who is in the Midlands of Eastern Perth in Western Australia. Down under, we say we're going to have a ripper of a show. I know that's your expression, Eileen. Thanks for joining us there in Australia. We realize we're going into evening here. We're in summer. You're going slowly into winter, and it is morning for you. So good morning, good day, as you have your breakfast there in Australia. Willie in Holland, in beautiful the Netherlands. Jim, he's so funny. I look forward to your show. I hope I don't fall asleep like yesterday. Yeah, I know it's like 10 after 1 a.m. where you are in Holland, Willie. We welcome you, and you're a real trooper for staying up so late into the night. That's right. You're watching on YouTube. Yes, Austin is. You got all those smile faces. I agree. He's an incredible individual with a big heart. Hello from Indiana, Barbara. It's good to see you in Indiana. We welcome you to the Jim Masters Show Live. From the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, warm greetings from Priscilla Lynn. And we welcome you as well in Street Level 6. The whole group is there, the whole gang. And Willie says, what a nice jacket. Well, thank you very much. Sort of like, it's hard to tell, it's actually a darker pinkish than what this lighting setup is going to show. But thank you very much. I'm glad you like the jacket. There's actually a whole suit to this. There's pants to match as well. But you don't know if I even have any on. Who knows, right? You're only seeing from here up, so you don't know. It's the theater of the mind. Yes, it's Tuesday. LOL, Christine Fairwood in Connecticut. This is the no stress zone. Exactly. All smiles, levity, and love. Bonnie Goodman. Oh, yeah, she's on with us as well. Good to see Bonnie. Did a super job on the apprenticeship of Denny Kravitz in Montreal. Charmin, good to have you with us as well in Canada. I agree. And light, levity, levity. That's right. We created a new word, levity, when we said both love and levity together. From Iowa, it's good to see you in Iowa, Renee. Thank you very, very much. Our dear friend, June Rachelson Aspa in New York. Good to see you, June, as well. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Let's see. Christopher in Ohio, Jim Masters, live all-star guests on your show. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, some dear friends are joining us and lots of wonderful folks. Ernestine Webb in North Carolina says hello. Anne in Southern California says hello. We welcome you as well. Good to have you with us. So, boy, do we have a great guest, and we're going to dive right in. This is somebody who is really a national treasure, who has provided so much entertainment and so much creativity in so many different venues within the arts. I mean, if you say television, yes. If you say film and movies, yes. If you say stage, yes. If you say directing, if you say being an author, all of it. Yes, yes, and yes. He has touched upon just about every element of the arts you can really think of, other than maybe pottery. But knowing him, he probably has done that on the side too. He's an extraordinary individual. He is a national treasure. He truly is a legend in the industry. And he's very humble about that too. So I'll say that for him, because he really, really is. And I'm sure that there is something or many things that you've seen him in or be a part of or help direct or create that have touched you over the years and your loved ones and friends, and maybe warmed your heart or made you think or got you to laugh or whatever it is. He's right behind me there. You may remember that shot. You remember my cousin Vinny. That's a little clue to who the guest is. And of course, what's on the screen. Legendary TV, film, stage actor, director, playwright Austin Pendleton is here exclusively on the Jim Masters Show Live. And we are so, so, so happy to have him here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about his background because it's quite extensive, and he's just really extraordinary. And for him to take time out of his very busy day, he was just teaching today as well. He's extraordinary, and he's been in so many different projects. He's also a teacher as well, and has been doing that for quite some time. These are just some of the things you may recall him being in. And we're going to talk about all these as well over time during the course of this broadcast. Love American Style, that 60s, 70s series as well. There's Shelley Long with him as well. So many extraordinary performances. We are so honored to have him here. Of course, you remember the Muppet Movie in that as well. And Finding Nemo too as well. He did voiceover in that. There is My Cousin Vinny, Short Circuit. The list goes on and on. You, of course, remember What's Up, Doc? Yes, remember What's Up, Doc? Another phenomenal, legendary film as well. So many lives touched through his extraordinary body of work. And there he is again with What's Up, Doc? Just it goes on. Of course, we're talking Fiddler on the Roof, the original, and so much more. Again, our guest is absolutely extraordinary. It's the one and only Austin Pendleton. Let me tell you a little bit about his background, and then we will be welcoming him to our show. Austin Campbell Pendleton. Austin Campbell Pendleton was named after his grandfather, born March 27th, American actor, playwright, theater director, instructor, born in Warren, Ohio, the son of Thorne Pendleton, who ran a tool company, and Frances Manchester Pendleton, a professional actress. A child friend was Roger Ailes, later of Fox News, and Pendleton talks about Ailes in the A&E documentary Divide and Conquer, the story of Roger Ailes. Pendleton is a 1961 graduate of Yale University, and as a member of the Yale Dramatic Association, collaborated in 1958 with lyricist Peter Bergman in writing 2 musical plays which starred Philip Proctor, Tom Jones, and Booth is Back in Town. Proctor and Bergman later formed half of the Firesign Theater comedy group. And Austin first received critical acclaim in 1964 for his performance as Motel in the original Broadway cast of Fiddler on the Roof. He appeared in The Last Sweet Days of Isaac, for which he won the Drama Desk Award. That's The Last Sweet Days of Isaac. He won that Drama Desk Award for outstanding performance and an Obie Award as well. The Diary of Anne Frank, Good Time Charlie, and Up from Paradise, as well as many, many other extraordinary plays. In 2006, he played Chaplain Bertolt Brecht's mother, Courage, and her children with Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline in the New York Shakespeare Festival Public Theater production directed by George C. Wolfe. In Central Park. In 2007, he appeared as Friar Lawrence in the Public Theater's production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And as well, Austin wrote the plays Uncle Bob, Booth, and Orson's Shadow, all of which were staged off-Broadway. Uncle Bob had its off-Broadway premiere in 2001 at the Soho Playhouse, starring George Morfagin, and for whom the role of Bob was written. And, of course, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who made his New York theater debut in that production. The critically acclaimed production was directed by Courtney Moorhead and produced by Stephen Sendor. As a director, Austin Pendleton has worked extensively on and off Broadway. His direction of Elizabeth Taylor and Maureen Stapleton and Lillian Hellman's The Little Foxes garnered him a Tony Award nomination in 1981. Additional directing credits include The Runner Stumbles and Spoils of War and The Size of the World. Austin also is a member of the Mirror Theater Limited's Mirror Repertory Company, directing the company's 1984 production of Henrik Ibsen's Ghosts, starring Geraldine Page and Sabra Jones and Victor Slezak. Austin also directed Uncle Venya, starring Maggie Gyllenhaal and Peter Sagard at the Classic Stage Company. The same year, he directed Tennessee Williams' biographical play, autobiographical play, that is, at the Pearl Theater Company. And in January and February 2010, Austin directed 2 plays, Bus Stop and that is the Olney Theater, and Golden Age at the Philadelphia Theater Company. I mean, his accolades and his accomplishments are extraordinary and extensive. 2011, directing of Three Sisters won him an Obie Award. 2012, he directed a production of Detroit at the National Theatre in London. He also served as artistic director for the Circle Repertory Company with associate artistic director Lynn Thigpen. The company had wrapped in 1996. He currently teaches acting at the HB Studio and directing at the New School, both in Greenwich Village. Austin has been involved with the Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago since directing Ralph Pappas' play Say Goodnight, Gracie, for the 1979 and 80 season, and is currently an ensemble member there as well. Now, here are just some of the incredible performances or TV shows and movies and things of that nature that you may remember seeing him in and he's been a part of. Good Times, Great performances: St. Elsewhere, The Equalizer, The Cosby Show, Murder, She Wrote, Tales from the Crypt, Frasier, Fired Up, Tracy Takes On, Homicide, Life on the Street, The West Wing, Oz, Touched by an Angel, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, Law and Order Criminal Intent, Joan of Arcadia, Life on Mars, Cupid, Difficult People, Alex Incorporated, on, Skidoo, Catch 22, Every Little Crook and Nanny. We're talking about some incredible movies. What's Up, Doc? The Thief Who Came to Dinner, The Front Page, The Great Smoky Roadblock, The Muppet Movie, Starting Over, Simon, First Family, Talk to Me, Offbeat, Short Circuit, Hello Again. Do you remember? My Cousin Vinny, My Boyfriend's Back, Mr. Nanny, Greedy, Too Much, Sergeant Bilko, 2 Days in the Valley, Trial and Error, The Mirror Has Two Faces, The Fourth Floor, Joe the King, Homicide the Movie, Fast Food, Fast Women, and Guarding Tess, and Rain Without Thunder, The Ballad of the Sad Cafe. I mean, it's extremely incredible. He was Gurgle, the voice of Gurgle as well in Finding Nemo, Manna from Heaven, Wishcraft, Lovely by Surprise, Fiddler, On the Roof, The Sound of Silence, Sunset. It just goes on. Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. He never sleeps. He's just really amazing. Piccadilly Jim, Dirty Work, on and on and on. Extraordinary, just absolutely extraordinary. An exemplary career, exemplary individual who loves his craft, who shares his craft as he teaches and mentors and inspires young minds, which is a beautiful thing to do. Director, actor, every aspect of this craft. It is my real honor and pleasure to welcome him as our guest here today on the show, Austin Pendleton. Austin, welcome to the show. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here, and welcome. You're looking good.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. I tell you, I'm sure people watching are just hearing some of the incredible things you've been a part of, and you've really had a taste of so many different kinds of productions and so many different elements of the arts, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing, Austin. Early on, when you were growing up with your family, you come from a family that, your mom was an actress. She was involved in the arts. So were you early on inspired by your mom and other family members to enter the world of entertainment, creativity, the arts?
Yeah. And also, just after World War II, when I was about 6 or 7, maybe 2 or 3 years after World War II, a group in Warren, Ohio, which was that time was a thriving industrial town, like all the towns in that area, Warren, Girard, Youngstown, and Pittsburgh, a little bit further away, many factories and kind of thriving blue collar town with strong unions, and all that. My dad, as you said, had a small company in the middle of all that, the Warren Tool Company. But some of the people from Warren, 2-3 years after World War II, came to my mom and they realized she'd been a professional actress at the Cleveland Playhouse, not far up the road. And they wanted to start a community theater. So they were asking her for advice, and she gave them a lot of advice. And then for the next 40 years, she also directed there almost every season and also acted frequently there. And in fact, I directed her there once in The Glass Menagerie. And then she directed Chekhov's The Seagull there about 10 years after The Glass Menagerie. And my wife, Katina, and I went out and acted in that. So, but anyway, the first year or so of the community theater, which is called the Trumbull New Theater. Trumbull's the name of the county. So Trumbull New Theater, TNT. Often the rehearsals were held in our living room in the evening. And that was just so intoxicating. I mean, my brother and sister and I were supposed to be in bed. I'm the oldest of them. And we would sneak down and hide behind furniture and watch it. And something so exciting about those people coming over in the evenings. And to this day, I love evening rehearsals.
Yeah.
Because of that. And so I got hooked, and then began acting in school plays. Also, some friends of mine and I began to put on plays in the basement of my parents' house. This was during our high school years. So then I went to Yale as an undergraduate. I never went to the drama school, but I acted extracurricularly a lot at Yale. And that's where I wrote those 2 musicals with Peter Bergman that Phil Proctor was in. And then came right to New York. I didn't go on to the graduate school. And then here in New York, I studied acting because I'd never really studied acting before. But when I got to New York, I started with Uta Hagen. I started to study down at HB Studio, and with her husband, who founded HB Studio, Herbert Berghoff. And I studied with them on and off for a few years. And then Herbert asked me to start to teach there. And as of this past fall, I've been teaching there 50 years.
That's unbelievable. The time flies, huh?
Yeah, the time totally flies. Yes, right.
So then, while in the big city, coming from the Midwest, take us through what it was like when you first came to the big city with all of the lights and Broadway and the excitement of it all for you. Here you're coming, and now you're in the thick of it all.
Well, I got an early job very soon after I got here, by what can only be called a fluke. I'd been at the Williamstown Theater Festival for 2 years, an apprentice. As an apprentice, back that's where I met my wife. She was also an apprentice. And then I came back 2 years after the second year of being an apprentice. The Williamstown Theater operates from June through August, and the non-equity company, Equity is the actors union. And also in the non-equity company that year was an actress by the name of Nancy Donahue. And then she got an agent because she got some leading roles in the plays Williamstown, and this agent by the name of Deborah Coleman saw it. One day I'd been in New York 3 months, and Nancy told me that she'd been talking to Deborah Coleman, her agent. And there was this play called Oh, Dad, Poor Dad. Mama's hung you in the closet, and I'm feeling so sad, by Arthur Coppett. And Deborah Coleman, Nancy's agent, said to her, it was being directed by Jerome Robbins. He'd never directed a play before, but he directed legendary musicals, most noticeably West Side Story, which was also his whole conception. And Deborah Coleman was saying to Nancy, they were gossiping essentially in Deborah's office. And Deborah said, the agent said, Jerry Robbins just can't find who he wants for the kid in Oh, Dad, Poor Dad. And Nancy said, well, I know someone who would be right for it. And Deborah Coleman said, well, okay, have him come in. So I went in, I met Deborah Coleman, and she said, I'll send you over to the casting director, who was a very important casting director in New York at that time by the name of Terry Fay. And I would never, under ordinary circumstances, have ever gotten an interview with Terry Fay because I was totally unknown. And Terry Fay looked exhausted of trying to cast this thing. It was early on a Friday evening in December, and she was just exhausted. She said, well, you have no credits except acting in college, but come in a few days. And she made an appointment to audition for Jerome Robbins. And I did. And to make a very long and winding story short, I ultimately got the part. I did a great first audition and then a terrible second audition because I didn't ever know you had to come back and audition again.
Yeah.
And I was and he called me up and said, come over and talk to me. Why was it so bad the second time? I said, because I don't know what I'm doing. So he kept calling me back. And finally he paired me up. Half that play is scenes between the young man and what they call the girl. And that was played by this up and coming. He had me audition opposite. He was considering Barbara Harris. And that audition between the two of us just took off, and we both got the parts. And Barbara Harris from that play became a major star. Mm-hmm. And she was pretty thrilling to act with. And we played it for a year. And then Jerry, 2 years later, was, or a year and a half later, whatever, was directing Fiddler on the Roof, and he put me in that.
Now, when you were told that you were going to be a part of Fiddler on the Roof, I mean, what was that experience like for you, Austin?
Well, I had to audition for it. I auditioned for a different role.
Oh, did you?
He had me come in to audition for the role of Perchik, the revolutionary, and I loved that part, and I really wanted that part. And then the last time I'd been in a program called the Lincoln Center Training Program, which trained actors for a company at Lincoln Center that was going to be directed by the great Elia Kazan, and they were about, and I had only small parts, but still. So my agent, Deborah Coleman, said to Jerry Robbins, you have to make up your mind about Austin, because otherwise he'll go and do this season at Lincoln Center with Elia Kazan. And so he said, the last day I was there auditioning, he said, while you're here, will you read the tailor, whose name is Muddle, the tailor?
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I thought to myself, I didn't say it out loud. I thought, oh, that stupid part. So I did a throwaway reading of it. The next day, she said, you've got to make up your mind, Jerry. He said, okay, I'll cast him as Muddle. And I was so disappointed. I thought. Then a couple weeks later, I was hurrying to a singing lesson in the late afternoon with Oro Whitty. And I bumped into Jerry almost literally. And he said, you know what? Now that you're playing Muddle, we're going to totally make it a different sort of character. And he described it to me, and then he ran off to whatever his appointment was. And so he transformed that role. It was a much more conventional role when I got the part. And and then it was postponed because they had to wait for Zero Mostel. Zero got a movie. So they had to put it off for several months. So I just used that whole year to work on my singing and my speech and my everything. And that was exciting that year, kind of just getting ready for it. And having a lot of time and studying with Uda and Herbert and so forth. And then you've probably heard this a million times. So we rehearsed Fiddler for 8 weeks because Jerry Robbins, he liked long rehearsal periods. And I thought, and all of us thought, this is really exciting. It's very beautiful and not like anything else. And it's beautiful. And then we opened out of town in Detroit and were very badly received. And it almost closed on the road. Fiddler on the Roof.
Who would have thought, right?
Exactly. I mean, it almost closed. Hal Prince produced it. And he thought he'd raised almost all the money. But then when the reviews were so bad, he having trouble raising the rest of the money. And Hal told me years later, I almost closed it. I didn't share that with anybody at the time, obviously. But he almost, and Jerry just kept working on it in great detail and turned it into what it is. So it was a long grind. It was kind of a thrilling grind. We were first in Detroit, then we were in Washington. And even in New York, we got mixed reviews. Right. I mean, they weren't like South Pacific or one of those. It was, but it caught on. Right. And it's still catching on. I mean, it established itself, I think we can safely say. And it's such a brilliant piece of writing. But so when you're right in the middle of it, you're not thinking, oh, I'm in Fiddler on the Roof. You're thinking I'm in this job and it's a huge show and everybody's working very hard. And then we're going through these hard times with it, but we all stuck together, thanks to Jerry Robbins. And he kept morale going when we were in big trouble, and just by hard work. And so you didn't keep thinking, you thought, oh, we're in a show in trouble. Let's all try to make it work.
No, you just went in day after day and doing what, the task required, right? And giving your best. And
what I learned from him in that was he attacked the problem in terms of detail. He didn't make big sweeping. He said, look, we knew what we started out to do. Let's just keep working. Let's not change what we're trying to do. He kept his head. usually when a big Broadway musical is out of town and isn't being well received, everybody freaks out.
Right.
And they throw out the whole idea of why they were doing the show in the first place. Sometimes they do, not always.
Yeah.
But Jerry had worked with Rodgers and Hammerstein, and their shows were often in trouble on the road. And he always saw how Oscar Hammerstein kept his head and just focused on, okay, what are the things we could do?
Oh, right.
And then those shows would come in and they would really work,
Mm-hmm.
And so he had that background, but also Jerry's whole temperament. He was a worker,
Right, right. So it was in him to just do it and make sure that this was going to fly, and we're going to tweak it and do whatever we need to do. And if we have the support of the cast and crew and everybody, it makes it so much better, right?
Yeah, right. And everybody fell in line.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because everybody really wanted it to work, and they believed in the project. And that's an important thing in anything that we're doing. If you got to have everybody on the same page and want things to work.
Yeah, you've got to, when things get in trouble, you've got to make sure that one of the director's jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
Is you have to sustain their belief in it when they could easily lose their belief.
Keep the morale high and the spirit high. Right.
And keep the eye on the ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was good at that.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the fanfare of Fiddler, take us through what that led to for you next in this wonderful career after Fiddler, Austin.
Oh, you'd have down times.
Yeah, sure.
Something else would come along, usually out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then, and often by a fluke. Flukes play. I've lost jobs by flukes, and I've gotten 2 or 3 jobs by flukes, where it's almost an absurd fluke. And so you get very, you realize that power is never, ever in your hands.
That's right. You think it is, and then you learn quickly that it really isn't. You learn fast.
So many other forces at work. Yeah, totally.
So what came after Fiddler for you as far as the next big opportunity?
Well, I was in a play called Hail Scrodic, which only ran for a week, but it got me a prize about 6 months later. That was directed by Alan Arkin, who's a great director.
Oh, yeah.
Otis, of course, a great actor. And it got me a prize about 6 months after we closed. And Mike Nichols was casting the Little Foxes, and he was trying to cast one of the parts. And my picture was in the paper that day. And the producer was looking at the paper, and he said, "Well, what about Austin?" He said, "Okay, hire him." And then we went into rehearsal several months later, and Mike said, "Well, you're wrong for this."
Yeah, right.
And then we worked it out.
Isn't it amazing how it is? Sometimes you can't necessarily overthink things too much, only because so much of it is based on right time and fluke and everything else, right?
You can't not only not overthink, you can't think at all.
At all.
Once you get the job, you start thinking.
Right.
But you can't. Thinking in career terms just totally is a concept that I, at least in my life, have learned not to avoid it at all costs.
Right. So you're really focused on the task at hand and not getting bogged down with all of the worry and trepidation prior to it.
And try to avoid in the downtimes of thinking, "Oh, I'll never work again." Just find other things to do.
Do you find that a lot of performers do that? They get stuck in the I have nothing next.
Well, and it's natural,
right,
because it'll suddenly just evaporate.
Well, like now, what we're going through now on the last.
That's a very special case.
Yeah,
but I mean, I mean, the whole business is dried up. But
It's-
usually, even when the business is thriving, all of a sudden, for certain people in the business, where things have been going well, suddenly it's gone away.
And sometimes you could be typecast where people won't think of you in any other role other than that big role you had on television or in movies or
I've
film.
always been terrified of TV series because I've always thought if I got on one of those and it was a big hit, that my goose would be cooked. Now, some actors have been able to transcend that.
Right.
And certain other actors though who are equally brilliant and equally full of a wide range of things to offer, they just are typed into that TV role.
Yeah.
And I can see how it happens. I mean, you're coming once a week into their living rooms, and it's very private. It's not like being typed from a movie.
Right.
And you're coming in every week as that character into their house.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're telling them, no, I'm another person than that. I can see how it happened, but I've always been very frightened of television series as an actor.
Right.
Watch them.
Right. Everybody will think of Lucille Ball as Lucy Ricardo.
Well, she actually made that character. She built it.
She did.
It was called I Love Lucy.
That's right.
And she so she got a jump start on that by planning it that way, and she but at the same time, and I grew up watching these people when I was a kid. The opposite of that was Jackie Gleason
With the Honeymooners.
who established it, but before the Honeymooners was a weekly show where he played a number of characters, one of whom was the guy on the Honeymooners.
That's right, Ralph Cramden.
Yeah, and so he was in the first film I was in, and he therefore had already established that he had a range. So then when the TV series was over and he began to make those films in which he's so extraordinary, like The Hustler, and he had already established that he could go many different places as an actor.
What was it like when you worked with him?
Oh, he was heaven.
Jackie Gleason, yeah.
He was a sad man. He had sadness. He had depression. Today, it would have been easier for him too. But
a lot of people in comedy do have that background. Yeah,
it's true. But he was very generous to work with, very thoughtful. It was my first movie, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he was just so there and present and
supportive, and
that's can be true with people who struggle with something like what he was struggling with. It makes them very understanding of other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's another. I want to run through a couple of photos here. People remember. That's a great shot of you there.
Oh, what's up, Doc?
What's up, Doc? What was it like being cast and being involved in that project?
Oh, that was fun. I mean, well, no, it wasn't fun.
Right.
it was great people. That kind of comedy is so hard to do. Because, well, putting it very simply, everybody has to talk so fast. And there are these group scenes, And Peter Bogdanovich, as I'm sure you know, he patterned it after those old Howard Hawks comedies from the 30s where they talk so fast. The particular one he patterned it after was the Howard Hawks comedy Bringing Up Baby, but there's also His Girl Friday and 20th Century and all these. And there was patterned after that. And Peter would do big scenes in a master shot and the scene would go on for 5 minutes and everybody's talking real fast and it had to be so precise. But because he was never going to cut away to a close-up, everybody had to get it right in the master.
Right.
And the tension would build and build and build, and everyone in the scene was thinking, oh, don't let me be the one who screws it up, please. It's all you would think about. And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
But it also caused, I think this would have happened anyway, but those demands really caused the company to bond. It wasn't, there was no hierarchy in that company. And a part of that was due to the personalities of the people, because everybody was there with everybody else. There was no, well, I'm the star and you're the this or whatever. But part of, so that would have happened with that cast anyway. But what really confirmed that was being in these group scenes together where everybody's totally dependent on everybody else. And we would roar through these scenes, and then Peter would say, well, it has to go faster than that. And we would go, oh my God, it's impossible. So I can't even watch the movie because it reminds me of all that stress. Although I did see it when it came out a couple of times. It played at the Radio City at the Music Hall, huge theater. And I've never heard laughs like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, and you thought, okay, you know, okay, this is beautiful.
So how did you like that, being involved in the comedic side of things with a movie like that? Because, you know, you've done so much that's dramatic, and you've had the comedic touch and so many different elements. But there you really were all in as far as...
It's a total cliche to say it, but comedy is hard.
It is.
It's very hard.
Absolutely.
It's like playing a really difficult piece on the piano. It's like, it's just... there's no give in it,
right?
And it's sort of absolute,
yeah.
You know. And so, and also, I found that when you're making a film, comedy is really hard to do on film because there's no audience there.
Yeah, you don't get that energy of the feedback and the response, right?
And so you're acting in this really heightened way along with everybody else, and you feel way out on a limb. And if it's people like the quality of the people on What's Up, Doc, well then, okay, great. You know, but it's exhausting. I mean, all the old jokes about, you've heard all the jokes. When the comic actor was dying and somebody says, is it hard? And he said, not as hard as comedy. You know, it's all true.
You hear everybody say that too. You hear even dramatic actors that attempt comedy, and they say comedy is even oftentimes harder to master than...
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be equally truthful as a dramatic piece, you know.
Do you think it all...
Well, it's not funny, you know.
Right. And do you think that there are people who are just not masters of it? Like they should really focus on the drama or other areas because they're very, very good at that. And maybe comedy just isn't in it for them? Or can everybody do it?
I would never say that about anybody because it's so surprising sometimes.
Right.
I did a comedy. The four leads were Lynn Redgrave, no less, and Paul Sand, who's a brilliant comic actor from Chicago, and me and Victor Mature. And Victor Mature gave the most assured comedic performance in the movie. So you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. So what was the response for you when people saw you in the brilliant performance in What's Up, Doc?
Oh, they responded more to the movie as a whole.
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I like it. And that's like being humble. When they pay too much attention to you there.
To the individual, right?
You're riding for a fall. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
I like it when you're part of a group.
The ensemble, exactly, because everybody plays off the energy of each other.
It's not all focused on, how are you going to top this? You know, it doesn't move into that, you know.
Exactly. Want to show another one here from the past, and maybe you can talk about it. Look at that one there.
The front page.
Yeah. What was it like being in that?
Well, it was great. I mean, getting to know Billy Wilder. I mean, everybody on that movie was great. I mean, I've been lucky that way, let's face it. Only a few times, and I don't think I'm going to tell you what they are, has it been hard because of somebody. But everybody was great on that film. But the big thing was Billy Wilder, who was a man of edgy, fierce man of infinite sweetness. And of course, he'd had a very difficult life, many tragedies.
Right.
Beginning in Europe, in the 30s, and he just had this outlook on life. One day, Carol Burnett said to me, Billy just found out that there was a fire in his office, and among other things, millions of dollars worth of paintings by very prominent modern painters were consumed. And and I said, where is he? He's over there in that chair. So I went over to him and I said, Billy, I just learned. And he's, I'm sorry, and he thanked me and he went like this. He went, oh. That was a lesson in something.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
When a person has seen that much and experienced that much,
yeah,
there's a way of looking at life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to show the intense and extraordinary range of Austin Pendleton, Love American Style.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Yeah. That was fun. I mean,
yeah. How did that happen? And
I have no idea how that happened.
What was your first entree into television? How did that happen? The world of TV for you?
It may have been Love American Style.
Yeah.
That was like in the early 70s, and it may have been that.
Yeah. And was it something that you, at that time, were open to? You wanted to go into television, or was it?
I didn't really want a series.
Right, right.
I mean, that sounds so pretentious. Like, yeah, but they're not asking you, Austin, so it's no big deal. So lofty, But I wasn't seeking one out. And poor Deborah Coleman, my agent, I think was.
Yeah.
But you like think about it.
Yeah.
But she was a great agent for me because she got it.
Right.
She got it. And so I never really, I did isolated spots on TV shows, a lot of TV shows over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I liked it that way.
So you went in, you did that character for a period of time, and then you go on to the next thing.
It'd be what they call recurring.
Right.
As opposed to a regular, like every once in a while, like maybe 4 or 5 times. I like Homicide.
Right.
The last season of Homicide. I was the MC. So, the ME, rather than medical examiner. So and that was extraordinary writing. And so I would get on the train to, every time I was in an episode, and I was in the majority of them really that last season, they would put all my scenes in one day in Baltimore, so they wouldn't have to put me up any longer than that. And the night before, I'd get on Amtrak and go down to Baltimore. And the hotel was right next to this wonderful bar that had a bookstore in it. And I would just go and have a couple of drinks and read all the books. And then the next day, work all day on Homicide, and then come back on Amtrak that night. It was a pleasant rhythm. And of course, the writing was out of sight.
Right.
It was so good.
Right.
And that was, but it wasn't like every week. It was fairly often. But that was Tom Fontana. And then I was on Oz that he wrote.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Tell us about that experience, Oz.
Again, I would be in episodes, and my scenes would all be in one day. So I'd just go in for a day. And that was in New York. I didn't even have to get on Amtrak. And so it was like, it was one element in your life. Wasn't all consuming.
Right.
And some episodes I wouldn't even be on in Oz.
Right.
And again, when it would literally always be in one day. So every few weeks there would be a day I would get on the subway and be on set. See that it didn't. This is going to sound really weird. It didn't disrupt my life.
Right. Right.
It wasn't a consuming thing ever. Television that would take over my life, the way most plays would, or certainly the way a movie would. But even a play or a movie is just that one play or that one movie. And once it's through with you, it's through with you. But a TV series in which you play a leading role, that's your life for as long as the series runs.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would never, ever do that.
Right.
But I've never, ever done that. Yeah.
Then there's The Diary of Anne Frank. And tell us about being involved in that glorious production, Austin.
That was great. All the things you're asking me about were great.
Because you're great.
Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people are great, and some, no matter how
Takes a team. Takes a team.
Yeah, sometimes what's the old Native American man in that movie, Little Big Man, says?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the magic works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I remember I got a review in a film one day from Rex Reed, where it said, and it was early in the year, whatever that year was. He said, Ozenfeld gives what will surely remain the worst performance of the year in any movie. So I called my friend Peter Hunt, the director. I quoted this to him, and he said, well, he quoted Chief Dan George. He said, sometimes the magic works and sometimes it doesn't. There's not much more to be said about it than that.
That took care of that, right?
Yeah, but what did you ask about?
The Diary of Anne
Frank.
Yeah,
well,
that
was that new script for that was written by Wendy Kesselman, who's a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the director was the great James Lapine.
Yeah.
His work on the Stephen Sondheim shows. I mean, extraordinary, And he called me in to audition, and I hated the audition I did, I thought. And I said to my agent, I don't want to be on Broadway anymore. I can't do this. I don't know what to. And I went home and I was talking to my wife, and I was saying, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. I gave a lousy audition. And the phone rang, and my agent said, okay, they want you. I said, okay, when do we go into rehearsal? It was that. I wasn't allowed to live that one down for quite a while. And and then Lapine told me that he didn't see me. Wendy Kesselman suggested that they see me for this role. And James Lapine told me when the rehearsals were going well and everything, he said, I can feel free to tell you now. When she said your name, I said, are you kidding? It was so not the way he saw the part.
Mm.
But he said, Wendy, once she has an idea, she does not stop.
She doesn't stop, right?
So finally, just to shut her up, he told me this, he agreed to audition me. And then he liked it.
Mm.
And but again, so that happens a lot. But if you don't have a Wendy Kesselman in your corner,
right?
Because I direct, and sometimes I'll propose an actor or something, and either the playwright or the producer, or sometimes I, the director, will say, "Oh no," and then it never gets pushed.
Right.
And who knows? I probably contributed in the denying the public many great performances by. And so it's that again was another fluke. That was Wendy just saying, "I'm not going to shut up until you audition him."
That's it. She stuck to her guns. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It was an extraordinary experience. I mean, Natalie Portman and Linda Lavin and Harris Yulin, George Hearn, I don't need to tell you the cast.
Yeah, nah, right. Yeah.
And that material, it was, I was going through, this is probably effortlessly into the realm of too much information, but I was going through a period then where it was finally solved by a neat operation they do now without any adverse consequences, where I couldn't pee. I would get into periods where I couldn't pee, and I would have to go to the doctor or to an ER. And one day, just before the Wednesday matinee, it started to happen. And I called the urologist. I said, I'm really in trouble, and I'll come by after the matinee. And the urologist said, wait, you're going to play the show, a matinee, in what he called in retention?
Yeah.
I said, well, it's about to start. And I was calling from George Hearn's dressing room because he had a phone and I didn't in mine. And the whole matinee, and then I suddenly thought, if I were this character Jewish and he had this problem and they were hiding in that attic, there's no way he could go to a hospital. How agonizing.
Right.
And that, well, you know, the play had been so well directed and the actors were so good and so well written that we were, but that was like harrowing. And then, so, you know, after the matinee, the doctor took care of me and I was fine. But I never, that left its impression.
But you used that scenario incorporated it into the work, which is amazing.
Using it as a decision.
Right. This was
You were just confronted with it.
It was like, okay.
It's not like the director saying, imagine that you're, you know.
Right.
No, it's not imagine, it's actually. And this was only for, and George Hearn, I remember during that performance would occasionally come and tap me on the shoulder in the middle of a scene and whisper, it's almost over, it's almost over. Yeah.
And then when it was over, did you run out and part the sea? Back off, everybody, zoom.
I felt great.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And then I finally just had that operation. I've been a happy man ever since.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. What a way to lighten the load, huh?
Yeah, right.
Literally. And then just again, showing a little bit more of the, we're taking people down memory lane here. They're probably remembering, oh my God, that's him. He was in that. Oh yeah, that's Austin. You were, and matter of fact, when I was mentioning that you were hopping on as my special guest, which I'm honored and I really appreciate, Austin. People were mentioning everything, Fiddler, Diary of Anne Frank. They mentioned all the TV shows. They mentioned, of course, My Cousin Vinny and on, Short Circuit. But then they also mentioned, of course, this one, the Muppet Movie.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get involved with that? How did that happen?
I don't know. They called him and asked me to audition.
That makes sense.
And it's for every audition for when you get the part, there are like many, many others where you don't, and you never know the reasons why.
Right.
Sometimes the reasons are totally political, like the producer and the director are having an argument about who should play it, and so finally they settle on a compromise, and it's you.
Right.
It's things like that. And Jim Frawley directed it, and we had a meeting, and I said, this is the only time I've ever done this. I said, could I have a change of heart or something in it? Because the part was originally written just as the chauffeur of the villain, I said, could I have like Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront?
Yeah.
Could I have a change of heart? And he said, sure, why not? So they wrote in a couple of scenes where I had a change. But if it was that, and it was just in a casual, I would have done the movie anyway.
Yeah.
And but it's very hard acting with creatures who aren't actors.
Right.
Even as brilliant as that group is.
Mm-hmm.
They're pieces of cloth,
Right.
and they're
Right.
genius pieces of cloth. They're
Right.
extraordinary,
Yeah.
but still, you know, it requires a lot of concentration. It's like sometimes the pressure for concentration when you're playing a scene opposite an actor is released by you just look into their eyes and stuff starts to happen, like like a lot of the people that we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, um, so it really you have to, and so it was hard. It was a hard movie to. It was a very tense set.
What were some of the things that made it hard? Is it because of talking to this inanimate object? Is
Yeah,
that
it was that. And the great thing was all those scenes with Charlie Durning, because I'd known him for years. He had a part in Fiddler on the Roof, and it was cut on the road.
Mm,
But while he was still in it, we became fast friends.
yeah.
And then over the years, we'd already been in 2 or 3 movies together before this. But in the Muppet Movie, of course, we were a team.
Yeah.
And he would say, I've twice played somebody's chauffeur, his chauffeur in that, and the chauffeur for Shirley MacLaine,
Mm-hmm.
regarding Tess. And it's fun because you just sit there in the car while they're arranging the shots, sometimes at 2 a.m, and you just talk. Charlie or Shirley would be in the back seat, and you're in the front seat at the wheel, just waiting to drive by the camera.
Right.
And you have these long, unguarded talks that are kind of wonderful.
When you were in the Muppet Movie, that opened up a whole new generation and all of these kids. People must have been saying, "Oh, that he was in the Muppet Movie." You know what I mean? The
Probably
great,
more than any other movie I've made. And the 40th anniversary, it's the only movie I've ever been in of which the anniversary was an event.
you're right.
I mean, and it's a lovely movie, but I was sort of taken aback by that. I would go to special screenings of it, and there would be a Q&A.
Yeah.
And it was been Gone with the Wind or something. It was like the 40th anniversary revival of the Muppet Movie.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, did you develop a favorite character in working with him?
Oh, I like them. My grandson loves Elmo.
Elmo, yeah.
Elmo's his man.
Yeah.
But they're extraordinary.
It's ingenious, isn't it? Isn't it ingenious?
Yeah,
and of course, their involvement in Sesame Street all those years too, and which was fantastic.
Was like a
Jim Henson.
Yeah. He was like a healer. He was like a spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would walk onto the set and everything would just get like that,
Yeah, he really gone too soon. Again, his legacy just really
ludicrous.
Yeah. And then, of course, that handsome gentleman behind me on the monitor there, this gentleman here, my cousin Vinny, which people always remember. How did that? Yeah. How did that develop?
Jonathan Lynn, he directed it. One August 1967, I was in London. And I got over there a few days early. A friend of mine from Ohio was coming over, and we were going to hang out in London. And then we were going to go down to Florence to meet my sister, who has been working in a job all summer in Florence, and then we'd come home. And but I got to London a few days before my friend came from Warren, and just thinking it would be fun. But actually, it was getting kind of depressing. I didn't know anybody. Wednesday afternoon of that week, I was passing the theater where Fiddler on the Roof was playing. And I thought, it was a Wednesday afternoon, and it was like 4:30. So I thought, the matinee's almost over. Whoever's playing Muddle the Tailor, I'm going to go backstage and introduce myself. Because I didn't know anybody. And it had been 2 years since I'd been in Fiddler. Almost to the day, actually, 2 years. I left it in August of 1965. So now it's August 1967. So the matinee was almost over. So I went backstage and I said, I'd like to meet Mr. Lynn. I looked at his picture and I saw his name was Jonathan Lynn. And he was coming downstairs. I said, I'm Austin Pendleton. He said, you must come back and to our flat and have tea with me and my wife. So I said, okay. So I went back and his wife was there named Rita. We talked and talked. And then he said, of course, you'll see the show tonight. And I thought, well, I'm not in London to see Fiddler on the Roof, but okay, can't be rude. So I went in and it was very good. And he was wonderful. And then we went back to his flat and he and Rita and I sat up until the sun started to come up, talking all night. And then they drove me back to the bed and breakfast that I was staying in. That was the beginning of this friendship, which has lasted ever since.
Isn't it beautiful when things like that happen?
Yeah. And then he began to have a remarkable career as a director, first as a theater director in London and then in New York. And then he began to make movies.
Right.
And his second movie was My Cousin Vinny, and he sent me the script. And I had battled all through my adolescent years and everything, and into my adulthood, I've learned how to really control it as an actor. But I battled in my life with a stutter, and so I flipped open the script like actors always do. First, you look through it for your part, and there's a character who stutters, and I called up Jonathan and I said, "This is a sick joke. I'm not going to do this." And he said, "Oh, I'm disappointed." I said, "No, Jonathan, no way. It's a wonderful script, by the way, but I'm not going to do it." He said, "Okay." So I was in Chicago. Then I came back to New York, and my wife said, "I think you should know that Jonathan's in New York now, and he's going to take you to a Greek restaurant tonight, just down the street here." Well, okay. At the end of 2 bottles of Ritsina and a nice Greek meal, I decided to do it.
Yeah.
I agreed to do it. I didn't decide to do it. I was drunk, and I agreed to do it. And it was a nightmare. It took it back. See, when you've had that and you've sort of overcome it, you fear that if you do it even as a joke,
it will come back and stay.
It'll all come back and you won't be able to get out of it. It's like a primal terror.
So if you were offered a role where you had to play a character that did stutter, that would be, you'd be very fearful of being offered a role like that then.
Well, and then that film had a bad effect on my career.
It did.
Yeah. And of course it's a brilliant film.
Yeah, people remember it. Yeah.
Extraordinary. And that script is just uncannily exciting. But of course he's a wonderful director, and the set was lovely. But people started saying, people started saying a sentence that no one should ever say to an actor. Quote, "You'll never be this good again." Which roughly translated in this case means, we've always known you stuttered, so now that you're using it so fully in this movie, this is your most authentic work. Bullshit. That's total bullshit. I would never say that to an actor about anything. And it's like, you'll never be this good again?
Now, for some actors and actresses, when hearing that, especially when they're first starting out,
that's horrifying.
Then they believe it, sink it in, and then it just changes everything, and then they stop.
And I've somehow managed to avoid that over the years. But now in my old age, here it was.
I would imagine when you're teaching too, you probably instill that in the students and saying, if you ever hear that from anybody, just let it go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, don't let that stick. Yeah. And so then I began nobody would hire me.
Yeah.
And so then actually some people I knew, including Jonathan, sort of were where I wasn't getting any work anymore in the movie. So there was a little period there where I got on all these movies. 2 of them were directed by Jonathan. One was a brilliant one called, no, 3 of them were for Jonathan.
Yeah.
And one of them was a trial and error,
Mm.
which in a way I like even better than My Cousin Vinny. And one was one was The Guarding Test with Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah.
One was a Whoopi Goldberg movie, and I knew her very well at the time. And Barbra Streisand came through. And I always thought they kind of realized I was in a slump and they threw me these parts. But none of those movies, some of which were delicious movies, had the kind of impact that My Cousin Vinny is still kind of legendary.
Yeah. Are you surprised that it took on that mantle?
Well, I did think from the moment I read it, this is a brilliant script. And I still think that. And I thought it was going to be one of those little, like a cult movie.
Right.
And it
almost like the Muppet Movie in a way. Yeah.
Well, the Muppet Movie is a huge hit.
Yeah.
One of those little comedies that, the cult of Muppet Movie is anyone under the age of 10. So that's more than a cult.
Yeah.
But My Cousin Vinny is as popular a movie. It's so many people's favorite movie.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't expect anything. I'm glad for it.
Oh yeah.
But it was it had a negative impact on me professionally.
Have you had situations when you were performing Austin, and of course you're a brilliant director as well. And playwright. We don't want to forget any of that. But where you said to yourself, "That was my best stuff."
Oh yeah, but I'm always wrong. Whenever I say that, people look into their drinks and don't know what to say. The lens through which you see your own work is so distorted.
Yeah.
It's just best not to think about it.
I've asked this of a lot of fellow creatives, and even for myself, I've shared it multiple times that when I see my work on television or anywhere else, or I hear it back, usually for me, I don't like it right away when I first see it air.
Yeah.
I just, and the reason for me, I think, and I expressed it to a couple of the folks, is initially when I'm doing the work, I'm seeing it out of my eyes. So I'm seeing the set, I'm seeing it from a totally different view. Now I'm seeing it flipped, and I'm seeing it appear on the screen from the perspective of the viewer, and seeing it completely flipped. But also for me, oftentimes, even with doing a show like this in a relaxed, warm, conversational environment, I will watch something again later to remove myself from being the person that's doing the work, to sort of dissect it, maybe a little bit, fine tune it, see what I could do better, how I could craft it better. So what I need to do is detach who I am and that tremendous emotional investment that I'm putting into that work, because I'm still riding off that emotional investment. So I can pull tapes out now of things I did, on PBS or anywhere else, and put it into the machine, press play, and watch it. And people then might have said, "That was extraordinary. You were spot on. That was brilliant. My God, that was terrific. You were great, blah, blah, blah." And I'm hearing that, but it doesn't sink in for me until I'm emotionally removed. There's some time emotionally removed from all I invested in it. Then I could put the tape in a few years later, watch it, and say, because now I'm detached emotionally from it, and say, you know what? Under those crazy conditions, with everything that was going on, with that level of experience, whatever, that was pretty good. But I need that detachment from the emotional, and also from the self-imposed expectation. the expectation of what I just did.
Right.
So I'll have people over that are watching something. Oh, tonight you're going to be on, and they're going to re-air it or whatever. And I'll say to them, okay, now when you watch this, pretend that you don't know me. Don't invest in the fact that you know me. Watch it as, would you be persuaded by what I just did, or convinced by what I just said? And I'll look for that feedback to see. But do you find that too, that sometimes you won't like right away what you just did only because of the expectation and that emotional investment you just put in all of that?
I try not to look back. If I can possibly avoid seeing a movie that I'm in. I sometimes it's rude. They want you to see it. And,
you go over to somebody's house and they have it on the TV.
Oh God! Oh, and you run and hide. It's like
and that's because why, Austin?
I don't know how to process it. I don't know how to get. It sounds to me like you, and I actually can tell this from your work, that you have a very clear thing that you have a wonderful way of accurately evaluating yourself. I don't. I think there's so many neurotic agendas in my relationship to acting that it's best for all concerned if I just don't look back, And also, that's in terms of film and TV.
And do you think it's because you would really tear it apart and dissect it?
Well, but I would dissect it, but my impulses behind all that would be totally corrupt. They would be narcissistic. What you're describing about yourself is the opposite of narcissism. It's sort of a clarity. I would get all into, I don't like the way I look there. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And it all gets frivolous. So, and then also, as an actor, now some actors are really able to do this.
Yeah.
But as an actor, if I see myself a lot, then I'm thinking when I'm acting in the next thing, I want to avoid that thing. But the less I know about the way I come over, so that involves you more or less kind of surrender. And you don't have the equivalent of this in the work you do, but I have the option to surrender to the director. And there's nothing I like more than doing that. Basically, like whatever you say. I used to be impossible with directors. I was, the kindest word would be immature. But then when I started directing, I suddenly had this new respect for directors.
Right. You understand.
Yeah, I thought, oh my God, and actors would be impossible. And then I would think, oh God, I used to behave that way much. Oh God. But then I also saw what the director has to do. So there came a time where I just thought, okay, just tell me what you want. And tell me if it's not good, and then tell me what you'd like to see instead, and I'll try to give it to you. But either in film and therefore I like to literally not know what I'm doing when I'm acting.
Right.
And it's so
you don't overanalyze it and obsess.
Yeah, that it's just like it's like acting should be like you should have the immediacy of how you behave when somebody shakes you awake in the middle of the night.
Right, exactly. Right. Like, let's just go.
Anne Bancroft, who was in the production, I was in The Little Foxes.
Mm-hmm.
I got to know her very well. And she was fabulous.
Oh, sure.
Fabulous person. But anyway, 14 years later, she came to see when I directed it with Elizabeth Taylor, and we went out afterwards. And I said, well, how'd you like it? She said, well, Elizabeth, it's a funny thing about her. She's never been in a play before.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she has this immediacy on stage. And she, as much as anyone in the whole play, is she's always really playing, and this is the phrase Anne Bancroft used, Elizabeth is always playing the emergency of the scene.
Right.
I think that's the best single phrase about acting I've ever heard.
The
And
emergency.
it's like, when you're in an emergency in life, you don't know what you're doing. You're simply coping with the emergency.
You're responding,
You
right?
have to be in that place as an actor. That's fantastic.
Do you know where I find that?
Uh-huh.
I really love in all of my work live.
Mhm.
I love live radio, live television, live stage performances. I've been in so many situations where there's chaos, sets are falling apart, and there's the camera's not on the right shot, and this person walked off the scene, and producers and other directors have thrown me out live on television and said, "Where's Jim? We need Jim. Jim's going to create a sense of solace and calm. He's going to use some levity. He's going to make it all seem like it was meant to be, like it was all on purpose. Jim, quickly, Jim, just run out there and do something. Just say something." And there were times where I had to vamp.
So again, the word emergency. Yeah.
Emergency. Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And there is a certain sport and adrenaline to that. And the key is to make it seem comfortable, like it's easy, like it's all on purpose, but inside, even like this, just having a conversation, as conversational and flowing as I am, all cylinders are firing.
Right.
I'm intently listening to what you're saying and threading from what you're saying. And my adrenaline is way up. Though it doesn't seem that way, it's not presented that way. And the combination of the two, the soft, warm presentation of really the essence of who I am with what's actually happening, the synapses that are firing inside, is really interesting to me. How it's like a sport, and because it's that anything can happen emergency feeling, which can really be very invigorating. Some people run from that. They're afraid of live and having things happen live because you can't redo it. You can't say it again. You just got to go with it and move on. Where I find it, I'm alive, literally, when it's live.
That's, of course, is what the early days of television was like.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, millions of people were watching. I can't even get my head around that.
Yeah, right. Now there's 7,000 channels. And
I would say to actors who I would work who were older than I was, who had done that when I was young, I would say, I don't know if I could do that. I would be so scared. How did you do it? And say, I was scared.
Right, but you didn't know it.
More scary. I mean, it's like millions of people are watching.
Yeah.
And what if you just suddenly don't know what to do?
Right. Something you fall flat on your face. Well, that's what I mean. We were always trained.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do the technique too. We were always trained to, when you look at the camera, there may be millions watching.
Yeah.
But just think about that one person that you're talking to. Pretend maybe you're talking to your grandmother. Hi, how are you? And welcome. And suddenly, for some people, and the other thing too is a lot of times people think they're like, I could have a face like this, and people, you think you're smiling, but yet the camera somehow doesn't make a smile big enough. So you really have to smile more for the camera to really take it and absorb it. So a lot of times I've been, and even when I first started out years ago, it was the same thing. You're looking at the camera and you're thinking about everything that you got to do, and you're watching the cameras move, and you have an IFB in your ear. So the director's talking to you as you're talking to camera. There's a lot going on. And you think you're smiling, and then the director says, smile more. And then they hold up signs, smile.
I would have a nervous breakdown.
And then they tell you when you look at the camera, and now here I am telling others, the same thing. Well, when you look, don't think about the millions of people. Don't think about what they're thinking. Well, they're going to look at the shape of your nostril and criticize it, or they're going to look at your eyelash, or they're going to look at your crooked tie, whatever. don't think about that. Just look at that camera and pretend that there's only one person that you're there. I mean, I've been with co-hosts and people who are fearful of that big eye that the camera has, that lens that the camera has when it's pointing at you, like a big studio camera. And I'll tell them, just pretend you're talking to your grandmother. And that's how we were taught, because then suddenly that takes all that angst down. You don't think about the millions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's always ultimately some version of the other being, the other person.
Right.
Acting
Right.
finally comes down to that.
I mean, when you're on stage and when you've been directing even and performing and also mentoring students, is it similar when you're looking out at the audience? Are you thinking of the thousands in the audience, or are you making it as if you're talking to one person?
The second.
Yeah.
Like you're talking to one person.
Like you're talking to one person.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yes. Makes, you could say, all the difference.
It makes all the difference. Right. Exactly. So tell us a little bit, Austin, about how you then slid into the directorial side of the industry.
Well, okay, I mentioned a while ago that I was in this 8-month training program for the Lincoln Center Company. In those days, the Lincoln Center was going to start with Elia Kazan directing. And the year before, from September to May, they had a training program. And it was very grueling, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 8 months. You didn't get paid for it. But on the other hand, but they didn't pay you. But on the other hand, you didn't get paid for it. And you didn't have to pay for it. So you had this extraordinary training for 8 months. And the acting teacher was Robert Lewis, who was a great figure of the theater. First of all, he was a legendary teacher, but he was also a big Broadway director, and he worked with Kazan for years and all that. And one day I did a scene, and there was some from Hamlet that he had assigned me. There was one thing I did, and he said, he gave a critique of the scene, but then he said, that thing you did at that one moment. I said, yeah. Was that your idea? I said, yeah. Because when you're working a scene for class, there's no director.
Right.
Did you just come up with that? Yes. Yeah, I just felt like it one day. He said, that's a directorial idea. You should think about being a director. And in addition to being an actor, he wasn't saying, get out of acting.
Right.
So then he also, after that, began to teach at the Yale School of Drama. And also there was this man, Nikos Sakharopoulos, who ran the Williamstown Theater Festival. And I'd already been to the Williamstown Theater Festival as an apprentice and all that. And Robert Lewis, who I was telling you about, said to Nikos one day, you know, Austin has an instinct as a director. So Nikos said to me, why don't we have you direct at Williamstown sometime soon? So I did the first 2 shows I directed at Williamstown, which were 3 years apart, because in the intervening 2 years I wasn't free to go there. As it happens, were both big successes. And the second of those led directly to jobs at other places, including on Broadway. And I've often thought, because after that, some of the shows I directed were big flops. And I wondered if the flops had come first, if I'd ever would have continued with it. So that's another fluke thing. And it's, so that's how it happened. It was a casual remark from Bobby Lewis to Nikos Sakharopoulos. Now, I'd already gone out to Ohio after I was in Fiddler and directed my mother in the Glass Menagerie. So I'd had an experience directing. And that's, of course, demanding material. And she was an actress of professional experience. And so I'd never stood in front of a cast before and directed. I mean, I had that one experience. So those first 2 shows, both of which were at Williamstown, went well. And that led to all this. And the first real success I had after that, I directed a whole bunch, was the first real success was on Broadway a few years later, a little play called The Runner Stumbles.
Yeah.
And that had already been in a tiny room at the early years of the Manhattan Theater Club, and then gone to a theater in Connecticut and gotten a good review at the time. So that this producer called Wayne Adams saw it in Connecticut and moved it to this. It was called the Little Theater, actually. It's not Hayes. And it was a surprise hit. It ran for months. And that sort of put me on the map as a director.
Yeah.
In terms of New York. The first Broadway show I ever directed was this brilliant musical by Gretchen Cryer and Nancy Ford, which I totally blew. I just blew it. That show aches to be revived with a decent director.
So when you're saying blew it, like how? What?
I just did it all wrong.
In what ways? Like,
well,
would you say?
I just made the wrong choices. It happens all. I've done that again, God knows. But so has every other director.
Sure.
Yeah. My Broadway debut. Now the show, it wasn't a catastrophe because the material was so great, and it got Tony nominations and all that. But it didn't work.
Yeah.
And there was a sense in it that here's this marvelous piece of material, and somehow it's not working.
Right.
So who do you point to? The director, and that's who you should point to.
The director, right?
Yeah. And also Gretchen, I'd been in the previous Gretchen Cryer, Nancy Ford, was The Last Sweet Days of Isaac, which I'd been in, not direct. That was directed by Word Baker. And that had been a big success. So everybody thought, oh, this is a natural. Well, there's no such thing as a natural. There are things that work and there are things that don't.
Right.
And you never know quite why.
Right. And you try to figure it out, and it doesn't always.
Yeah. Your life is one long post-mortem. Here's what I did wrong on this. Here's what I did wrong on that. Here's what I did wrong on this one.
Well, here's something where you didn't go wrong. Playing the voice of Gurgle and Finding Nemo.
Well,
tell us about that. How'd that happen?
Well, I forget how I got it. But
yeah.
And they animated. They flew me out to Pixar, which was in one of those towns in the Bay Area, right across the bay from San Francisco, Oakland maybe. And Pixar had its studios, and I just spent one afternoon. I flew out that morning, and of course you gain time, and from about noon to early evening, they would flash in the still room. They would flash on the screen, Gurgle, and I would say the lines in this high-pitched voice. And it was line by line. Each line I would say over and over and over again until they got enough takes that they know they could pick one. This went on. I practically destroyed my voice, by the way. I was hoarse for weeks because usually when you're acting, it's a back and forth and it gets related to the breathing in a way that you're not straining your voice. But when you're saying the same line, particularly in a character voice, and there's no actor there, you're playing opposite. You're playing off an image on the screen, and the image is your character. So all afternoon, then they took me, these 3, 4, 5 people from Pixar, took me to a French restaurant in Berkeley after all this at about 8 o'clock. We went right from the studio to there, and we had this wonderful meal. That's what I think about when I think of Finding Nemo. And then they put me up in this wonderful old hotel like they have out there in California, with the Moorish architecture and all that. And what I remember about Finding Nemo is when we went for dinner afterward. It was, I have in such awe of people who do work for animated. I mean, in the same film, Ellen DeGeneres, who is, of course, who I've never met, but who, of course, is, and I don't use this word. She has a kind of genius. And certainly when she appears in things, but also that creature she creates in Finding Nemo. I think Finding Nemo is as good a movie as I've ever been in. I think it's like a perfect movie. It's just that that process is so,
Yeah.
it's just very difficult.
So what would from your perspective, Austin, what would your definition in this case be for a perfect movie? Just that everything went right, or
Well, what it is, I mean, first of all, the storytelling is brilliant. The way they unfold the story,
right?
and the way it, although it's whimsical, you know,
Exactly.
the primal drama at the heart of it is so brilliantly done. And the animation doesn't distance you from it. It takes you into it.
Mm.
And it tells one of the great stories in any movie.
Right.
I saw it and I was just knocked out. And of course, and from just on top of that, just from a visual point of view, it's so imaginative, but not imaginative in a clever way, imaginative in a way it enhances the story.
Mm.
And you get so emotionally, it's so emotionally direct. And I think it's a flawless, shattering, beautiful movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you like all the Disney animation, the Disney movies over the years as well?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's something about Finding Nemo and a couple of the other Pixar ones, but Finding Nemo, and some of those movies are marvelous that you just mentioned. I mean, Finding Nemo is sort of like there are certain regular movies that are like this, just simply in a class by itself, like Citizen Kane. I'm not saying it's the best movie in a minute. It's just it stands totally by itself.
Just totally has its
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Finding Nemo is like to me. That's the only movie I've ever been in that I would say that about. And I've been in a lot of really good movies.
Yeah,
And
sure.
the movies I've been in that haven't really worked have been full of great stuff, you know. But Finding Nemo has an epic.
Yeah. Yeah. Just it shows your range too. I mean, are you doing a lot of voiceover work?
Oh, I've never done it before or since.
Just that one shot there.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It's not, and it isn't. I mean, I'll do anything for money.
If the phone rings, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a pleasant experience.
It's very intense.
You don't get the fulfillments while you're doing it that you get from playing a scene with actors.
Exactly. Right.
And it's even the Muppet Movie, you are actually playing a scene that's not exactly with actors, but there's a back and forth. It's a scene. It's not you saying the same lines over and over again.
As opposed to being in the voiceover booth with the headphones on, reading the script.
Which doesn't any way resemble creating the actual circumstances of this.
Right.
But that's the way they have to be done. I'm not complaining about it.
So what did you call upon within yourself to be
I don't know what I just, you know what I did?
Just did it?
You know what I did, Jim? I did exactly what I was told. Dave was at a little more of this, a little more of that, a little bit less of this. So I would just do that.
Right.
Because they obviously knew what they were doing.
They knew what they wanted, right?
And they were very nice.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult process. And then there was that great evening after it.
Absolutely.
Finding Nemo, my mind goes to that restaurant.
The
quality of the wine and the conversation.
Don't tell me you had seafood.
No,
it was Finding Nemo.
No. Tactless. It was a French restaurant. I'm almost certain it was a French restaurant.
Very nice. And then we have Short Circuit. Tell us about that.
Well, it's directed by a guy I went to college with, John Badham. And that's how I got that.
Yeah.
And that was good.
What was it like working on that project with everybody and that role?
Oh, fine. It was again, it was exciting doing those scenes where we all had to talk very fast. Because I mean, it wasn't quite as harrowing as What's Up, Doc, which was like super fast. But there are all these scenes, and it also had all this technical talk in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard when you don't really know what you're talking about.
Right.
And you have to say, at least in What's Up, Doc, you know what you were talking about.
Right.
you research and you do all that, but it's not anything to do with anything you know about.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's like medical jargon, being a doctor. Yeah, same thing.
I remember I was on that show. With the detective played by the English actor Edward Woodward, and he was a detective or something, and I played it.
That wasn't the Equalizer?
Yes.
Yes, the Equalizer on CBS.
And
Yeah.
I had a recurring role by which, I mean, maybe I was on it 4 times, where I played something like a scientist.
Yeah, that was actually a good series. It didn't last forever, but it was a good series.
Oh, wonderful series. And then we were shooting in this little apartment on the Upper West Side in a room. And in the next room was the actor Lindsay Krause. And she was in the next scene. So she was kind of lying down in the next room. So I had this long speech where I was talking to Edward Woodward, saying all kinds of scientific things. And I'd gone over it and over it and over it. And I'd looked it all up. None of it had anything to do with anything I knew anything about. I would have had to have taken a 3-year postgraduate course to really know what I was talking about. And but I got through this long speech, and Lindsay Krause comes out and says to me, I was lying there listening to you, and I almost believed you knew what you were talking about. I think the best compliment I've ever had. I laughed for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because she was pinpointing exactly what an accomplishment that when you give a speech like that and you actually sound like you're talking about it, they should give you the Academy Award. I mean, it's like, and she was sort of in that funny way acknowledging that was. But I always get cast in these parts where I'm a brilliant person in math or science,
mm-hmm.
and I'm in real life.
Mm-hmm.
First year algebra is about the peak of my capacity, and it's and physics. I had a high school teacher in physics, and I'd gotten into Yale, and he called me in and he said, "I should flunk you. This is a first year physics course.
Right.
You haven't." He's a very sweet guy. He said, I'm going to give you as low a passing grade as I can, but still I'm going to give you a passing grade.
Yeah.
So that you will get to go to Yale. If I flunk you, they won't accept you at Yale. Mm. He changed my life, and he lied.
Is it because he saw something in you that he wanted you to?
No, I just couldn't understand the most fundamental things about physics. Even now, if I lifted up this computer, I couldn't explain to you why it happens.
But did he do that passing grade so you can get into Yale because he saw something in you that he didn't want? He didn't want it extinguished.
Yeah. He thought I had other ability. He's sort of in a job. He's such a sweet man. He said, "You do have other gifts,
right?
But this is not one of them." If I were you, when you go to Yale, I would stay away from all that.
Right.
Because it's, of course, the same courses would be way more sophisticated in college than they would be. And so that's how I got into Yale.
So
but the funny thing is, now in my acting career, particularly in TV and stuff, I've always been cast as these people with these complex scientific minds, and I have no aptitude for it at all.
You do have that look.
Yeah, I do have it.
Sort of an Einstein sort of.
Yeah. See, the things they think about you if you don't comb your hair, they think.
Well, somebody posted, we're getting all these beautiful comments during the courses. I've been checking them out, and they said that the green shirt brings out your eyes.
Well,
so good choice.
That's good to know about. Oh, tell them thank you. Yeah, now I know what to do.
Now you know what to do. Because the wardrobe people are on hold as well. Then you have this where you're Hello Again, and Shelley Long is in this one too. Yeah. Tell us about that.
That was a hard movie to make.
Was it?
Yeah.
What made it hard?
It was tense. It was very hard material. I don't quite know why. It was tense. It was a very tense set. Everybody was nice, but it was like you never knew if you were getting it. And then it didn't open well. Oh God, there was a industry screening one night, and we all went to a hotel suite afterward, had a party, and everybody was, and the industry response in the audience that night had been awful. I mean, they hated it.
Mm.
And then, and this has happened with 2 or 3 movies I've been in, rather quickly, and it got terrible reviews. And then after it opened, it began to develop this real following. I've been in a few of those where it's like written off as hopeless, and then it, not quite cult, that I wouldn't go quite that far, but it people come up to you, and of course there's an era now where anybody can see any movie they want at any time, and there are certain movies that people watch over and over again, and one of them is that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you keep hearing about it over the years. It came out all those years ago, and it's and so something happened that turned out okay when the public saw it. It touched some deep.
Yeah.
I think there's a thing about Shelley that is sort of haunting, and she
There is.
yeah, she there's a communication, and she of course is the anchor of the movie. There's a thing that comes over to the audience that they feel certain stars have this a very private connection with her, that they feel she understands them,
Right.
and they understand her.
Right.
And there's no sensationalism to it. It's just
Right.
that. And I think if that film had been made with anybody else, it wouldn't have created that kind of stir that it did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hard to make.
Yeah, really.
And on top of it, I was in a play at night every night, and it was so I was a wreck, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was in a play with Laurie Metcalf.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's brilliant, huh?
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Educating Rita, 2-character play. And she's extraordinary.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
a good artist. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. She can take on anything you throw at her, and she just turns it into gold.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Alive on stage. I mean, it's right there.
Right. Exactly.
It's happening. I got that again through a fluke. I got involved with, in their early years, with Steppenwolf, and it was a total fluke. A Chicago producer wanted a play I'd done in New York, and he wanted to use a Chicago director, and the New York producer said, well, you have to use Austin, or I won't let you do it. I didn't even want to go to Chicago to do it. I already directed in New York a play called Say Goodnight Crazy. And I loved it in New York. I thought, I don't want to go to Chicago. The producer said, okay, I'll take Austin. He clearly wasn't happy with it about that. But he has to work with this group, and I insist, called the Steppenwolf. And I thought, oh, give me a break. See, one is often wrong. And I really didn't want to go. We just had our child. And I didn't want to go. But I went. And then this extraordinary group of actors. And ever since then, I've been a member of Steppenwolf. And that's how I met Laurie Metcalf.
So it all comes together. Absolutely.
It was, in fact, a Steppenwolf production in Chicago, and they moved it to New York. And I was playing it at night while making Hello Again during the day.
And then there's A Beautiful Mind. That's another incredible, incredible movie. Tell us about your involvement with A Beautiful Mind. Russell
Crowe saved my ass on that one. I'm in these 3 scenes, and it was a long, long day. Again, it was all in one day. Finally, in the evening, we shot the big scene between him and me. By this point, I was a total wreck. And they didn't get around to my close-up till 11:30 at night. And we'd started working at 6 in the morning. We did these other 2 scenes, one of which is the hardest scene I've ever done in a movie, where I explained to him about all the awards he's won. And that stuff is hard. I mean, he knows all this. Why am I telling him? But then there's the scene in the dining room where we really get down to cases. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm too tired. Too tired. And it's 11:30 at night, and he had done his close-up at 5:30, and then they did a lot of other little shots in it. And then they finally came to my close-up. And his close-up 5 hours or so before had been very emotional. And they said, "You can go home, Russell. We'll just get someone to say your lines off camera. You're very tired." He said, "No, I'm going to sit by the camera and play it for Austin." And so he stood by the camera, off camera, and said his lines with the same degree of intensity that he had 5 hours before when the camera was on him.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happened. They got it in one take.
Mm.
That performance was literally created by Russell Crowe, by virtually inhaling what Russell Crowe was doing.
Which is amazing. I mean, when that moments like that happen, it's
and he would have been totally within his rights to go home. He was exhausted. Then he had another long 12-hour day the next day. I didn't. I was done.
You were finished. Yeah,
he did that.
And that movie, it's still, people talk about that movie and so many.
It's a brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's just one of those. You've been. I mean, there's a running theme here in this conversation. I don't know. Maybe you should write a play called "It's a Fluke."
Yeah, right. Well, that's this line of work.
Everything is. It's.
I love it when people try to plan their careers.
Yeah.
Sometimes some actors know how to do that, but most of us, it's like
it's day to day. Exactly. You also did an adaptation at Lincoln Center of Minister's Wife. Tell us about that.
That's from the Shaw play Candida. That's a musical that was commissioned by Michael Halberstam, who runs a theater in the Chicago area. And he hired me to adapt the Shaw play into a script for a musical. And this composer and lyricist were on it, Josh Schmidt and Jan Trainen. And it has a gorgeous score. And we did it in Chicago, and then we did it at Lincoln Center in the small theater underneath the big theater. And it ran for a while. And it's done occasionally. People do it. It was,
Yeah. Really beautiful too. Really beautiful. And I encourage
for a musical because you have to answer to so many different concerns when you're the scriptwriter. But it, I've always had a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Not with the people, but just with the process. And so there were frustrations in that. You can't quite do what you want to do because the other elements of the show but it had a beautiful score and it was a good production.
Mm.
So.
Yeah. Do you lean more towards liking acting more than directing, or is it 50-50?
Oh, I don't have any preferences.
It's whatever the work is.
It's best not to have preferences.
Right.
It's best not, as I say, to have any plan.
Right. Because then you get stuck and compartmentalized and trapped. Right.
And you start saying sentences like, "No, I think now in my life, this is when I'm going to concentrate on this kind of bullshit."
I'm now this. Now I wear this hat, and I sit in that chair, the director chair, or whatever it may be.
Totally.
And as I mentioned, you're also teaching as well. Tell us about. I mean, you were doing some teaching today. What was the teaching you were doing today, Austin?
Oh, it's a scene study class.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it on Zoom now, like everybody on the faculty. In fact, that's how teaching is now done all over the country.
Yes.
Right now. And people bring in scenes and you critique them.
Yeah. And you really enjoy that, don't you? You enjoy mentoring.
It's the only stable thing in my professional life.
Right.
There's stable things in my personal life, but that's the only stable thing in my professional life. It's the only thing that every week you will do that.
Right.
And that it's like a gyroscope on a ship. It sort of keeps you from being totally at the mercy of the waves and everything.
Exactly. It's a foundation. It's a grounding. There's
Yeah.
some
Every
stability.
week at this hour, I will do this.
Right. Exactly right. So have you had students also come back who've moved on to larger roles and they're excited to tell you what they're doing?
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens. This business is so, I can't begin to tell you how arbitrary this business. Well, as I say,
And it's
we're
fickle.
having this conversation because of a series of flukes over a period of half a century, and some of which have worked in my favor and some of which have not, but all flukes.
Yeah.
So sending people out in their little crafts, their little boats under the ocean of this industry is like, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all about luck.
Yeah.
It's all about, and
Sink or swim.
yeah. And then, and usually you sink and then you have to climb to a desert island and hope a boat comes along. And then all of a sudden you're fine. And it's a whole life like that.
Or your career is then suddenly resurrected too.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I've had so many times. It's so have most people in the business where your career is like over.
right.
Like, literally, please don't even call us.
Mm-hmm.
That's been said to me.
Right.
And it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Forget it.
Right.
You get a good run there for a couple of years. Forget it.
Yeah.
That happens over and over and over again.
Exactly.
And so you do other things. You do little showcase productions and stuff like that.
Is there anything that you haven't done yet that you've always
I've
wanted to do?
I've never had a pet project. I lost a part early on in my time that I really wanted. And I thought, I'm never going to want a job that much again, a particular job that much again.
Mm-hmm.
Like you make, like when Vivian Lee throws up in the garden, in Gone with the Wind, and says, I'm never going to let this happen again. It's like, it's like that. You just say, all right, I've hit bottom and I don't like it down here. I don't mean professional bottom because that happens all the time, but emotional bottom. There's no job I'm ever going to want that bad. That really helps if you really learn that.
Have you had?
And the way you learn it is you get crushed early on, and then
you get crushed.
And you say, I can't live like this.
You build resilience, right?
Yeah,
and stamina.
And the resilience comes from, I don't care.
Right. Right.
Whatever comes along, it seems right when it comes along.
Right. Right. You don't start out that way, but then you eventually, the world.
You have a whopping disappointment early on because that focuses you.
Right. Right.
And you say, I can't plan ahead.
You really can't, right? You really can't. And then do you think when you do, sometimes it loses the authenticity and the excitement?
Well, I don't know anymore because it's been so many years since I pinned my hopes on anything.
Right.
So I don't even know how it probably does lose authenticity.
Has there ever been, and everybody gets asked this, but a role that was offered you that you turned down that you wish that you hadn't?
Oh yeah, I can, and you won't believe this, but I can't even think what they are. But yeah, well, oh yeah, and you think, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
How stupid am I going to get? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What brings you the greatest joy about all of this that you do, this extraordinary career and everything that you've had an opportunity to participate in? And like you say, not all of it was always easy. It's not a rose garden. It's not cheesecake, but you've put the time and you've stuck with it. And you've got this body of work that will live on well beyond any of us. What are some of those things that have brought you and continue to bring you, Austin, the greatest blessing and joy out of it all?
I just like the work. It's a line of work that I like. Almost no matter what I'm doing.
One person I asked last week said, the money.
Well, I wish them well.
Yeah.
Because that is so volatile.
Yeah.
That is so volatile.
What would you say to somebody who's considering these avenues as far as a career, and they're coming up the ranks?
I say to myself, and I say to them when people ask me that, don't think of it as a career. Think of it as something you like to do.
Yes.
As soon as you start thinking in career terms, you're going to drive yourself insane.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Think of it as something you would like to do, whether it turns into a career or not. Just a thing you like to, it's a thing you want to learn how to do and keep learning how to do under whatever See, so many times, I mentioned it in passing a minute ago, but I've been through periods and all I get asked to do are these little showcases where you rehearse, you get paid almost nothing at all. You can't live on it.
Yeah.
And 16 performances are all you're allowed, or 21 or something now. And fully half of what I've done is that.
Mm.
And people say, well, isn't that going to hurt your reputation if people know you're available to do those things?
Mm.
Well, another thing that might injure my reputation is if I'm sitting around not doing anything at all.
Right.
And a showcase you can always get out of. It's part of the contract. If you suddenly get, so you're not even, but people say, but it doesn't look good. Well,
yeah.
So, okay. So it doesn't look good.
But you got to be happy and fulfilled. And
you get to play kind of roles you would never get to play otherwise. Hamlet I did in a showcase. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it also, it just keeps the engine going.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps, the thing is to find ways to do the work you do as often as you can under no matter what circumstances, whether you're on Broadway or whether you're in an attic somewhere, or whether just not even make any distinction between any of that. Because it's all so perishable. And it's also, the bottom can drop out just like that at any given moment.
Do you like elements of that? The fact that it can, does that drive you? Does it give you passion?
You either like it or don't, neither like it or don't like it.
Have you learned to like it, or just go with it?
You just accept that that's just the way it is. That's the horse you decided to ride. So, okay, fine. And you don't think of it either as bad or good.
Right.
It's just the work itself that you like.
Right.
The fact of it.
Right. Exactly.
And it's a nice way to relate to other people. Even when they're difficult, you're all working together on the same thing. That's nice. That's interesting.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, because you never know whose life you're touching and how many people are moved by the work and touched by the work deeply and remember it so well. And that's the key.
In fact, you can't even think about it. You don't know, so you can't even think about that.
Right. You never know. Maybe once in a while you'll be at a bookstore or supermarket and somebody comes up to you and relays.
Yes, and that's nice, but you don't
look for that.
Yeah, and you don't get depressed if that hasn't happened in a while.
Right. 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 Exactly. Those are great tips. Well, you are extraordinary, and really, like I said, you're a national treasure, and I know you're very humbled about hearing things like that. But let me be the one to say it on behalf of everybody else. You really, really are. I mean, your breadth and scope and your passion and your desire to, through it all, through the flukes, and the roller coasters and the life rafts and everything that's involved in all of these. Because I know myself working in this industry that it's got its crazy moments and it's got its interesting people. And, if you're going at it for the craft and the love of it and the joy of it, and you got all these other hurdles and walls and things and people that you got to work through in order to do what you still love doing, and that comes naturally.
Yeah.
And that comes, with time, and it does build up that strength and resilience that actually then sometimes allows you to then even be a little bit more selective. You really want quality productions and projects. You have a certain eye.
Except you don't really know what's going to be a quality project.
True.
In it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Right.
That you learn that fairly early on. So it's more indefinable. It's something, it's there to do at that moment. And you don't even know whether you're drawn to it or not, because sometimes you're not really drawn to it and then it's great. And the reverse.
Right. I'm sure you've had that, right? Where you were, a proposal came to you and you participated in it and you really didn't want to necessarily be in it, but then you fell in love with it.
Yeah. You never know. That's the thing I guess I like the best. You never know.
You don't know. Right.
Yeah. And the more you breathe with that, the more interesting it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. As this conversation has been, dear Austin Pendleton, and I don't know if you still have your glass there, but we usually like to toast on this show.
Oh, thank you.
And we toast you, and thank you so very much for sharing this time and this wonderful conversation and evening with us here on the show.
You're a wonderful interviewer.
I appreciate that.
You really are, Jim. Yeah.
Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed the time as much as I have. That's for sure.
I enjoyed it very much. Yeah.
Any surprises?
Everything was a surprise, and nothing was a surprise.
This was one of those moments that was not a fluke.
Yeah, right. We planned this. Yeah, right.
We planned this.
Yeah, there were links and things. Yeah, right. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's a joy when I get a chance to chat with people who freely open up their lives and are authentic and real, and who've accomplished things and have no problem showing wounds or scars, or showing, the battle wounds, and sharing what it's like. Because a lot of times, sometimes you're always in, and you know how this world is of creative arts, and especially coming from a television background too, where everything is made to or it used to be more than now, but because of reality, but everything perfect, everything scripted, everything is nice, everything is there's no problems, everything is easy. You work to make it look that way. Meanwhile, just to the left of this light, there could be a fire over there right now. You know what I mean? But you won't know that, and it's really amazing to be able to. You're also a survivor. You also are a survivor, and that says a lot, because there are a lot of people who come in and out, and they don't go through the flukes. They have a fluke or two, and then they're scared and they run for the hills. You're a survivor, and that alone is inspiring to so many people as well. And then when you look at all of these things, we just scratched the surface really of your accomplishments and the work you've been involved in. But the breadth of variety, and to be able to, whether it's directing or acting and teaching, just shows that there's so much in you that you share with the world. And that's really what it is an expression of the character and of the task at hand and of the flukes, but it's also a deep expression of who Austin is. And that's the beautiful part of this work, isn't it?
Yeah, I was brought up that way.
Yeah. How has that Midwestern background enhanced what you...
I like Midwestern people. I mean, it's so hard to tell. You don't know what you would have been if you were from another part. I mean, it's not like the Midwest is better than anything else, but it's what it is very special. It's a special place. It still is.
Right.
I want to go out there and work, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
We have some wonderful comments coming in here. Barbara has a wonderful comment. She's going to be coming on the show as a guest as well in
Oh, Barbara.
weeks. And Bart Shadow.
Barbara and I are one terrific cabaret team.
Yes, she mentioned that. She said you weren't giving yourself props and what a brilliant performer you are and involved in the cabaret world like that.
We have a very good, outrageously good time when we do cabaret. Yes.
And Bart said he's enjoyed this. You're a delight, Austin. Jim Austin is right. You're a wonderful interviewer. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Bart is watching on YouTube at Jim Masters TV. And Barbara says, great interview. And Renee in Talk About the Midwest. Renee in Iowa.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Very interesting interviewer. I've seen many of the shows and movies he has been in. Some really wonderful comments that we've had here. I've always enjoyed Austin Pendleton. Marianne Kelly in New Jersey says all these life lessons from those so willing to share how they navigated careers. Thank you. She's been touched. Ralph Lampkin, who's a dear friend of both of ours.
Yeah.
Fantastic show. Hi, Austin. He's watching and Talk About the Midwest there in Indiana, the South Bend. And Barbara said earlier, Austin's not telling your audience what a charismatic cabaret artist he is.
Well, I just said that Barbara and I, she's the spark plug of it. She got me into this, and you get on a cabaret stage with her and you just fly.
Yeah. Then it becomes truly amazing, right?
I would never in my life do a cabaret on my own. I'm in awe of people who do that, but I am not drawn to that at all. But with her, it's fantastic to do it.
The backstories on all those projects are interesting. That's Christine.
There are 100 more where those came from.
Yeah. You'd have to open up a bottle of wine for that one, right?
yeah, or something. Yeah.
Or something, exactly. Well, Austin, thank you again so much. This was amazing. And my sidekick here, thanks to as well. I don't know if you saw earlier, George Burns with us.
Yeah, George. Yeah,
with his cigar and all. We did a nostalgic week where I brought out all childhood toys and everything. And this came out on George's 100th birthday. And my aunt was a collector of all kinds of different dolls. And this came out. So I brought it out one night on the show, and everybody said, keep George, make him sort of your Ed McMahon. So he comes in to say hello, and they love him as much as they also love the I Dream a Genie bottle too.
That's gorgeous.
Isn't that beautiful? That's an authentic hand painted I Dream a Genie bottle, and it weighs a ton.
Yeah.
But little things like that to put smiles on people's faces. You know, you've got to do, like I say, we're all about light and levity and love here. And because, you can turn on the TV, you can go outside your door, and there's a lot of hate, and there's a lot of
no kidding
division and anger and upset and fear and so much more. Before we go, how have you been dealing with a couple of months here of the social isolation?
I think what's happening right now is the main source of what people are protesting about is extraordinary. And I think it's a heroic moment, and the most in my life in this country. I think it's thrilling the way that all this, injustice is being finally we're all being made to deal with it together, and a lot of very brave, articulate people are helping us, and I think it's thrilling. It's very, it's full of anxiety.
Yeah,
but it's extraordinary.
Yeah,
and the fact that it happened, and after that hideous incident, and that people took that and have used that to. I'm moved by it every day. and there's going to be some rough sledding with it. And
Oh yeah.
I don't want to get into politics, but
No, but yeah.
let's just say we don't have the leader that would be ideal for this moment. That's all I'll say.
You need a comforter. You need somebody who
and an inspirer,
some inspirer,
a healer, a bringing people together type leader, and that's not what he does. He has his own thing, but almost because of that, we have to do it ourselves, and people are doing it.
yeah.
Just astonishing to watch TV and just see what's going on. It's just, I've never had such a sense of an important moment in history that is, I think, on its way to being transformative.
Yeah.
As I do now. And it's of course not out of nowhere at all, but
not a fluke.
the way it just happened.
Yeah.
The way that was the response to a terrible thing.
And truly amazing too, when you look at 2020, the start of the new decade, there's decades that start always have, and especially just the numbers, 2020 had this excitement about it as far as the new decade, the new year, and the pandemic, the economic loss, civil unrest. I mean, it's really everything, including the kitchen.
Unrest is a civil coming together.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's very challenging.
Absolutely.
It challenges you. It makes you ask questions about the world and yourself and everything. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think that it fills me. It's frightening as hell, but it's full of hope.
Well, I say that, what we've been going through from COVID-19 forward, everybody says, well, gee, when are things going to get back to normal? And I want it to go back to normal. In a way, normal wasn't so great. Normal.
Forget normal. And normal right now is a speck in the rearview mirror.
And we were already, how people aren't liking the social distancing, but in reality, before this all started, we were already social distancing. We had our heads in our cell phones.
That's very well put, Jim.
They're on social media, stuck on what everybody else is doing. Well, and now that we have to social distance, nobody likes it.
At the same time as this profound coming together is.
Right.
So it's a wild time, which
it is.
Social distancing isn't as painful as it otherwise might be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we don't return to normal. I'm hoping that we rise from the ashes better.
Well, that's our hope.
With more love and empathy and kindness, less divisiveness.
Exactly right.
That could be Pollyanna to some, but hey.
Well, it's not Pollyanna because it's the only decent way forward.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We have no other valid choice.
It's the only decent way forward. Yeah. That should be on bumper stickers everywhere and billboards on the highways. The only decent way forward is. Yeah. Copyrighted by Austin Pendleton.
Oh, please. Everybody in one way or another has been saying that.
They have. Yeah. That and unprecedented. But, somebody said to me, that I was chatting with, she says, you know what? Actually, it's humorist and stress management expert Loretta LaRoche. She was on a couple of nights ago. I interviewed her on public television on PBS and a couple of her specials. She goes, you know what? With her dry sense of humor, she goes, I don't want to hear this being called unprecedented anymore. You know what unprecedented is for me? The 30 hours I was in labor with my child. That's unprecedented.
Well, to take her phrase, she's right.
Yeah.
But take her phrase, the country is in labor now.
Yes. To
bring forth a new
birth.
Yeah. And it's like, it's painful and it's frightening and it's all of that, but it's a birth.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you have anything about it are you fearful at all?
Well, when you're this kind of transformation, I mean, you're collectively, playing with fire.
Yeah. Right.
And so you do, but it seems that everybody who's really leading this, and we're hundreds of thousands of people actually now, know what they're doing. They seem to know everybody. There have been huge civil rights advances in my time. In 1960, the best presidential moment of my life was when LBJ gave that speech that led to the Voting Rights Act. Have you read that speech ever? Jim, read it.
Yeah, it is amazing.
It's the greatest presidential speech in American history, I think. And it was a great moment.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, I remember this so well, nobody thought a Voting Rights Act would ever happen until virtually the moment it happened. And here this Texan backroom politician brought it about. And it was a great, great moment. So there was that. There have been breathtaking moments, but still that was a law that was passed. And now, of course, that law has been somewhat compromised in recent years, but still it's an advance over what was there before. And but this is not a law being passed. This is a whole new consciousness that is being forged. And that can hurt. That's not like easy.
Right. Yeah. It's new and foreign to some.
Everybody
right?
has been made to think a different way. Even you thought you were so, oh, I get it. But no, you have everybody collectively has been. And if we can get people in charge who know how to lead that, what he's done, which is interesting to me, he did, and there are problems with this, but still, he did to a certain group of people for the first time make them feel listened to.
That's the interesting part of this, isn't it?
Yeah, he did. Now, he doesn't know quite how to ride that tiger.
Right.
But he did that. And that now anybody now has to know that that's part of the equation. And that's his accomplishment. And I mean, I don't like him a lot, but that's not the point.
Right.
Historically, he did that. And that was going, no matter who did it, it was going to cause some ugly stuff because a lot of people were feeling awful about things.
Right.
And so, a lot of bad stuff has come up from that. But now it's there, and now if in the future now people can make it clear to those people, no, you are still being listened to. And he did that. That needs to be understood. And with all the problems that have come from that, he did do that. So we can move. We can somehow find a way to. Right now, it's not looking good, but we can weave that into this great. It's not a great leap forward. It's a great slow movement forward.
Right.
Then we might have something.
Right.
That wouldn't have been possible without these last 4 years.
Actually,
when you think about it,
a lot of what's happening might not have.
Yeah. First of all, through everything, it is such relief that this new set of perceptions we have much more clearly is right. But also, these people are acknowledged. And it's very difficult and raw and painful, but now they're acknowledged. You can't unacknowledge them now. And he did do that.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason he did it, but he did it. And so we have to deal with it now. And if we learn a way to deal with it, that could be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That could be actually an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm not even projecting anything specific.
No.
I got no advice here, you know. The cat is out of the bag.
The cat is out of the bag live.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, again, you really are amazing to speak with, and you speak from the heart and from the soul, which I think is sometimes rare in these industries, and it's refreshing, and it's inspiring and empowering. And I'm sure the students that you have are deeply moved and inspired by everything that you impart in them, and what you've been doing tonight here with this conversation that will definitely, this epic conversation will go down in the history books in perpetuity. It's truly amazing, Austin. And I want to tip my hat to you for everything that you've done and for your continued love and passion and soulfulness and everything. It's been noticed. It's been, I know you're humbled about it all, but people have paid attention, and I certainly have. And I really, really thank you deeply for taking time, this amount of time with us to be on the show tonight and to share your experiences and your stories. And you've inspired a lot of people, and you've certainly inspired me. And you're welcome to come back anytime. The door is always open.
I'd be happy to do that.
I hope we get to break bread maybe with June and the gang.
That would be wonderful.
Go for dinner and chat some more off air. That would be fantastic.
Yes, good.
I appreciate it. And again, I toast to you, and George Burns over here toasts to you, Austin. You have a wonderful night.
You too, Jim.
What are you going to do? This inquiring minds want to know. What are you going to do next when you're done with this? Are you going to have a piece of cheesecake or something?
I'm going to have dinner with my wife and watch Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell and Brian Williams. And then an hour of Golden Girls.
And an hour of well, B. Arthur and Estelle Getty and Rue McClanahan, and you can't go wrong with all that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I raise a glass to you, sir.
Yes.
You have a wonderful night. Enjoy your dinner and with your wife and your family. And we will see you again soon. Thanks for all of this time, all this wisdom, and all this love you shared with us tonight.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. You have a good night. Take care, Austin. We'll see you again.
You too, Jim.
Bye-bye now. A brilliant artist, an extraordinary man, and somebody that was such an honor to welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live. We certainly hope you enjoyed this extended interview. You know, some of these guests are so amazing that we don't even put a clock on it. I mean, generally, 8 weeks ago when I created the show, it was supposed to be an hour, but there's no clock. When you're talking to people who share in the way that Austin has tonight, and Lane Bradbury did last night, and Kathy Garver did the other night, and Paul Green did, and so many others. There's no clock. You don't want to have a clock, because if you have a clock, then you're always thinking about, I've got to get this in. We've got to do this. We've got to touch upon that. We've got to remember this. We've got to celebrate that. You just let it, like Austin said, fluke. You just let it roll. You just let it happen. When that happens, you have some of the most extraordinary exchanges that inspire. I mean, I've been looking at all these comments all night long, and so many people have been inspired and moved by our conversation, which I think is absolutely spectacular. I just want to show you again, we'll do a little review here of some of the amazing works and this is just some of the amazing things that our incomparable guest tonight, Austin Pendleton, has been a part of. Again, some wonderful shots here and all his different looks over the years. And so many of you have expressed how his work in the various roles, whether directing or acting, and the wonderful interpretations and the wonderful expressions of his soulfulness. Look at that shot. I mean, that tells you right there. Some amazing work that he's done. And of course, he passes this on, this wisdom and knowledge, to young minds who want to pursue it as well. Extraordinary performances. You're talking, Fiddler on the Roof and to Finding Nemo. I mean, incredible range. Hello Again. And even Love American Style. I mean, many, many TV show appearances as well, and continues to do so much. Of course, My Cousin Vinny and the Muppet Movie, and Short Circuit. I mean, that's extraordinary range and they all of these being convincing performances too. I mean, What's Up, Doc? If you've never seen that, you have to. It is hilarious. It's very interesting. It's hilarious. There's another, I wanted to show that as well. There he is, teacher with some of the students and more. And just that expression that is so quintessential Austin Pendleton, right? And of course, another wonderful, talking about Fiddler and so much more. He's extraordinary. And it was, he graced our presence this evening and yours. And we thank you very much for the time that you've taken and loved it. Thank you. We appreciate that. And you're so right. Exactly. And that's the way it works. You can have 5 questions to start with and can extend to 10, and those 10 lead to 10 more. Absolutely. And with me, I don't even prepare questions. I've been on television shoots and others where it's got to be scripted or there's teleprompter, but I love it when it's ad lib. I love it when it's, you just let it roll and you play off each other. It's like a fabulous tennis match. And you know what? You both, it's a draw. There's no winner. Everybody wins. That's the best kind of game. Austin is a remarkable soul. I agree 100%. It was amazing in Diary of Anne Frank, absolutely, as the dentist, and so much more. You guys have so many memories. One of the best interviews I've ever seen, and such wise words. Well, I appreciate that, Renee. That really touches my heart to hear that. And I know you guys have been saying comments like that of late when watching these shows. You know what I think I love about this is some of you are new to the show and you're getting an essence maybe of some of the work and the way I do it professionally in my work in television and radio and stage and more. And we're just sharing the essence of that here on the Jim Masters Show Live. So, comments like that from viewers who've been watching all evening really move me. And Renee will be chatting with you as well. And again, you're going to have to show me that place in Flushing, Queens, New York that has those delicious pierogies. Because when Eileen Barker was on, who lives in the Midlands of Perth or Western Australia, then you chimed in and you said, well, you live in the Midlands of Flushing, Queens. And you told me about this wonderful pierogi place. We'll have to go there and check that out. Thank you for that beautiful comment, Renee. And thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. And as you know, we always toast all of you. We say thank you so very, very much to you and you and you and you from all around the world. And as we always say, I might be the star of the show, the host of the show, but I think you are the stars. You and you, you and you, you and you, you and you. Every single one of you is a star. And don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not. You're a star in your own way. You have purpose. There's a reason why you're here. And we all need each other. That's right. Don't ever think that you're not needed. We all need each other. I know some people say that when I say that, it reminds them a little of Fred Rogers. And I actually take that as a real compliment. And I had an opportunity to meet and know Fred Rogers with my years with public television. And that moves my heart when you say that. Some messages last the test of time, and they stand the test of time. Like this one, I say this at the end of every broadcast. Love one another, breathe from the diaphragm, relax. Again, the sun will come up, the sun will set, the birds will chirp, the ocean tides will continue to come in, and the earth will continue to rotate on its axis. Regardless of all the craziness that may go on, those things are constants. So if you're struggling with some of the things that seem like they're not constant, there are beautiful constants around us. Just go to the ocean. Just get into nature. Listen to some fantastic music. Watch one of Austin's movies or TV appearances. There's constants. There's fantastic things out there. The love of family and friends, right there. And that doesn't cost a thing. So relax, breathe, be good to one another. Again, that's what it's all about. And I thank you very much for being with us here on the show. And I will show you, we have some amazing folks who are coming up as well. I'm very, very excited to tell you about some of the guests that are happening. You know who's going to be with us? I just spoke to him today. Do you remember that face? If you look on the left, do you remember the movie A Christmas Story? Do you remember the kid that got his tongue stuck on the the freezing pole in A Christmas Story, Scott Schwartz. Yes, he's going to be a guest on our show coming up, and we're very excited about that. As well, Sean Cannon. Sean Cannon was on many soap operas, and I believe he was AJ Quartermain as well. He was in One Life to Live, and I think was it General Hospital? I mean, he's a soap opera legend, but also he's been in a lot of television shows, a lot of movies. Sean Cannon, you have seen him in so many performances. He's going to be joining us as well. On Friday, Dina Fanai is going to be joining us here on the program. Brilliant performer, singer, and so much more. And she was a backup singer in Foreigner. She was also in Trans-Siberian Orchestra and so many other, and she's a solo artist extraordinaire. Anne Hampton Calloway is going to be joining us here on the program as well. And Denny Bolero is going to be joining us. And Cindy Williams is going to be joining us. Remember, Shirley Feeney from Laverne and Shirley. Sean Wiley from Under the Street Lamp is going to be joining us. And Rita Cosby, legendary television news anchor and radio host, is going to be joining us as well. Lionel Ketchin is going to be joining us as well in coming weeks. This Thursday, saxophonist and musician Mike Casey is going to be joining us. So we've got a bevy of fantastic guests that are going to be coming up as well. And again, we do fun segments. We go on location. We do food segments. We do inspirational segments, lots of levity, and so much more. So we're going to wrap up for the evening. This was very extended, but we certainly hoped you enjoyed it. If you think somebody would enjoy this, I encourage you to go into our archives. All of these broadcasts, all of these legendary interviews. This reminds me sort of like the way Dick Cavett did it, these extended interviews as we were celebrating our very special guest, Austin Pendleton, today. If you'd like to go back into the archives and see all these shows, whether they have interviews attached to them or not, just go to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And I encourage you to subscribe to the channel as well. It doesn't cost anything. You just hit subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we have new content and new episodes and more on that channel right there. So you can go to Jim Masters TV at YouTube. And again, feel free to like this page. If you're watching on Facebook, give it a like. That helps the page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps the channel as well. It helps us grow this even further. And again, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jim Masters TV as well. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We are here every single night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with all your friends. And it's week number 8. 8 weeks of incredible shows. And we thank you very much for all of your time and attention, all of the wonderful comments, even the comments I get throughout the day from so many of you when we're not on the air. I get all kinds of feedback and comments during the course of the day leading up to the broadcast. And I think that's cool. I really love it. So thanks for all of the love, the comments, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your evening, or if your day has just started like it has for our friends in Australia, we say good day, and we will see you later on, 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific, exclusively here for you. And good night, everyone. Thanks for another great interview, Jim. My pleasure, Renee. We thank you very much there in Iowa. Good night, Jacqueline. Hope you enjoyed it as well. And Renee, again, thank you so much dearly for those wonderful words. That really moves me that you feel that way, and lets me know I'm doing what I love and expressing it with all of you. So we're going to say goodnight. You know, my long extended goodnights here. I'm not a good goodbye person. So we'll say, see you later, 7 p.m. Eastern. Jim Masters, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, right here, same spot, YouTube and Facebook at Jim Masters TV. Good night, everybody. Take care. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Love you all. Bye-bye. Good night.